I just wanted to welcome everybody to the 2023 Emergency Preparedness Summit. I'm Megan Hemming. I'm the Professional Development Director for the California Special Districts Association. And CSDA is just thrilled to partner with USC, Southern California Edison, Optimum Seismic, and our Special District Leadership Foundation to bring this event to special districts. We're really thrilled about the lineup we have today. The topics include cybersecurity, as everyone knows, active shooter prevention and response. We've added some earthquake insights into the event today as well, with Assemblymember Rodriguez as well. The drought, which I know is on everyone's mind, even in spite of the rains that are indicating otherwise, and wildfire prevention and recovery, and then concluding today with Senator Ashby. So we're really proud of the lineup that we've put together with USC, and so thrilled about the partnerships and the information everyone's about to receive. So just wanted to welcome everyone and say thank you, and I'll turn it over to you, Frank.
Thank you, Megan. I appreciate those comments, and I join them wholeheartedly. It's our pleasure to partner with you for the third time. Certainly for our participants, welcome on behalf of Dean Goldman and my colleagues at the Sol Price School of Public Policy. We appreciate this partnership with SDA, Special District Association. This, of course, does not happen, as Megan mentioned, without the substantial support of organizations like Edison, High Cartoonian, who has been amazing in his support, and Optimum Seismic, Ali Sahabi as well, and SDA's foundation, and of course, Special District Association, Megan, and the Price School. Our program is going to go pretty fast today. We have an amazing lineup, as Megan suggested earlier. We would be remiss, however, in an emergency summit not to mention the importance of what we potentially face in California with the earthquake in Turkey and northern Syria. Therefore, we invited Assemblymember Rodriguez, who champions this topic in the state, and we'll introduce him a little later, as he has some hearings coming up that he's scheduling, apparently, to talk about this very important topic in the state. But without further ado, I am going to right away go into our first topic, cybersecurity, and certainly turn it over to one of my colleagues here at USC. Michael Oros is a foremost expert on the topic. And in fact, Michael knows more than what he can tell us, as a lot of stuff that he works on is classified. And but regardless, I appreciate Michael, because every time I asked him to come and speak to our audiences, he has never said no, even though he has an extremely busy schedule. Michael, I'm going to turn it over to you now. Thank you very much for being here.
Okay, well, thank you, Frank. So I was in Washington, D.C. yesterday, and it was pushing 80 degrees. And I come back here, and you got to wear a jacket. Strange world. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about cybersecurity challenges in municipalities, which I have maybe 10 minutes to cover a topic that really is, a couple months long semester course. But here we go. I'm with the Information Sciences Institute, which is part of the School of Engineering at USC, and we're headquartered in Marina del Rey. And if you want to learn more about what we do out there, just send me a note, and I'll let you know what we do. So with that, I'll move forward. So, what are the threats out there right now? And, our major concern is attacks due, nation state attacks due to, of course, the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. China is very active in, attacking or at least exploring municipalities and their infrastructure, critical infrastructure. North Korea has always been doing this. They're champions at it. And probably the biggest, and probably not a surprise to all of you, is that the malware of choice today is ransomware. And why? Because it's easy to do, and the payoff is quite handsome, and requires very little effort. Traditional approaches of stealing IP or currency, whatever, requires, like credit cards. If you want to steal credit cards, it requires, not only stealing the numbers, but then selling them on the dark web. There's a lot of risk to that. It opens you up to vulnerabilities. With ransomware, you just go in, you encrypt everything, and then you charge a fee to decrypt, and off you go. So it's growing, and it'll continue to grow. I put in here phishing and spear phishing and insider threats because they've been around forever, and they still are. At least phishing and spear phishing is your number one threat. It takes advantage of human behavior, and insider threats, of course, are still the most damaging because they are inside the wire, and so employees again can be a part of the weak link in cybersecurity. So our biggest threat, of course, is us, and the fact that cyber attacks pay off. There's very little attribution, and as you can see just by tracing things in the criminal system. We don't keep our systems up to date with the latest cybersecurity technologies and processes. And in some cases, it's hard to do because if you get a patch, say, from Microsoft for Windows, many cities, municipalities, you can't just automatically do an upgrade. You have to run it through scanning, and there's, the IT department has to check to make sure it meets certain criteria, et cetera. And so, you could be behind a patch or two from what's currently out on the market because of the processes that you have to follow. So I don't dismiss that, but we do need to do a better job of keeping our systems up to date with the latest cyber technology security measures. We rely on legacy systems that can't be updated, like SCADA devices that allow us to manipulate physical devices, like power grids, et cetera. A lot of this technology has been around forever and very difficult to upgrade it. We don't have up-to-date security protocols and practice them. We wait until we're attacked, and then we start to panic. And what are we going to do? We need to practice them. And our employees, of course, get lax with security protocols and procedures. This is the big problem right now, is that we are truly still the weak link in many of these cyber attack scenarios. And, we rely on third-party vendors who are vulnerable. A lot of our processing, a lot of our IT now is done in the cloud, and which is great. There's many benefits to using the cloud. But you are relying on a third party to secure your assets, your data, et cetera. And so, you want to do your due diligence to ensure that the vendor you're relying on is taking all the precautions necessary to protect your data. And again, our attacker community is continuously upgrading and getting smarter and smarter. And there's Fancy Bear, which is an APT, an advanced persistent threat. That's what APT stands for. They've been around for a long time, and they're just getting better and better and better. And they're just one of many types of Russian, Chinese, and North Korean cyber gangs, if you will, that are just getting better at doing their tradecraft. So, and they rarely get caught. And when they do, they rarely get penalized. So those are the threats. So what can we do? Keep our cybersecurity defenses up to date. Again, patch. Replace outdated technology if possible, or isolate. For example, in that little icon there, the SCADA devices, some have been around for 40, 50 years, so they don't have any security built into them, and maybe you can't replace them. Well, put a firewall between them and your main assets, your enterprise, and maybe even implement a DMZ, which is it's not the DMZ in North Korea and South Korea, but a demilitarized zone where the assets handle potential threats coming from a SCADA device. So there's things you could do to isolate certain legacy systems. Implement a zero trust model. Okay, this is where NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technologies, is promoting standards for implementing zero trust models, where the assumption is everything is vulnerable or has been compromised, and therefore you build in security into the system for everything, even internal communications and data transfers. It slows the system down a bit, but it will help protect your assets. Update again cybersecurity protocols and procedures. For example, if you haven't done two-factor authentication, please do so. There's many different ways to do this. There's a couple examples here of like the YubiKey smart cards, like a CAC card if you're doing stuff with the U.S. government. There's many ways to do two-factor authentication. Please do this. Obviously, strong password controls and change those passwords often. Limit access to external sites. It's one of the ways you download malware. And limit the use of external devices like USB devices. Many of the systems I work with in the secured environment, we don't have USB ports for that reason. We don't allow anybody to bring a memory stick in to infect our systems. And again, limit the use of personal devices, because if they connect to your network, you're going to get possible malware intrusion. And train. Okay, we need to keep our teams up to date, our employees on what the latest threats are and what's good, hygiene methods for preventing an attack. Increased use of cyber intelligence. So, join a company or an organization like InfraGard, who will keep you up to date on what's going on, what's the latest attack vectors and malware out there. And again, have a backup plan. So when the attack occurs, not if, but when the attack occurs, you know what to do. So practice it periodically. Build resilience in the business model. So if you have a power grid, build in ways to quarantine infected areas so that the rest of the system can operate. All right. And finally, create an onion defense system. So just like in the physical world, have patches, have firewalls, have DMZs, two-factor authentication. So that if one system fails, another part of the onion defense takes over. So what's the future look like? Increased use of automation. Okay, so AI is coming along, but even non-AI based systems that are constantly monitoring both outside and inside your wire are coming. Okay, so that's the good news. Increased sophistication of forensics tools and methods to help aid with attribution. Much of the Department of Defense has funding that's actively going after this type of technology. And then build cybersecurity into your products. So if you're not a developer, but you are buying from a vendor, ensure that they are building security into their systems. For example, if it's software that you're buying, make sure they're using something like DevSecOps, development, security, and operations, so that security is built into the system and not built on top of the system like we're doing with the internet today. As a purchaser of systems, you have the right to make that part of your requirements. And then, of course, AI is everywhere, and AI is clearly being used in cybersecurity. Much of the research that we do up at ISI is in AI applied to cybersecurity, and so more of this is coming. That's the good news. And so, wrapping up. The bad news is cyber attacks are not going away. They're only going to grow. The good news is there are steps that we can take now to prevent or at least reduce the impact of the cyber attack. And finally, more help is on the way. This is an active area of research across the country. And so that's the good news. And with that, I'm turning it over. Frank?
Peter Campa is next. Peter, of course, from Groveland Community Services. Thank you, Peter, for being here. The floor is yours.
Good morning. My name is Peter Campa. I am the General Manager for the Groveland Community Services District in Tuolumne County, Sierra Nevada Foothills. And I also manage the Copper Valley Community Services District, which is a small special district in Calaveras County that provides roads and mosquito protection and street lighting. So I've been in the special district business for 30 years now, and technology is one of those things that I've absolutely promoted in every entity that I've been involved with, but at the same time, also, promoting safety within that technology, because I'll tell you, if you have not been hit, it's just a matter of time. It's just unfortunate because it's every single day. We all get those phone calls. We all get those texts that are just erroneous and in a way very scary and very unfortunate that we have that to deal with in our daily lives. But it's there to stay. And as Michael talked about, we just need to be ready, and we all can do that. So what I'm here to talk about today is just to give you a brief overview of an incident that occurred in Groveland. And it's something that, sorry, I'm just struggling with my technology now. Okay, here we go. So what happened is it was a ransomware attack that occurred, and it really incapacitated the district. And this district was formed in 1953. It's one of the first community services districts in the state. If you're not familiar with community services districts, we can provide a variety of services very similar to a city. And in Groveland, we provide water treatment, wastewater collection, treatment, and reclamation, fire and emergency services. We have parks and recreation, as well as we operate community centers. So we've been around. This is our anniversary this year. We got a big one, and we really enjoy serving the community. So this all started with an innocent message on a Friday afternoon that came in, and our office manager picked that email message up, and it had a very friendly sounding request from a customer that wanted them to look into their account. And she clicked on the link that appeared to be a photograph or a screenshot or something like that, and nothing happened. It just, and then she got an error message, and off we go. We close down for the day on Friday. Everybody leaves their computers on because we back up on Sunday. And I say we, I wasn't there at the time, but it was, I'm hearing the stories secondhand. Anyway, so everyone comes back in on Monday morning. It's a typical Monday in 2015. Everybody's got good and caffeined up, sitting around the water cooler, having a cup of coffee, and then jumping into their Monday morning routine, opening email and checking customer messages. And what do we see? We have a nice little error message on our main office manager's computer that won't let her do anything. She tries to open files, and it's unable to open files. She attempts to run a program, and no record exists. Everything is just wrong. It's obviously a major issue. And so we continued to try to fix the problem, and probably the more we dug into it, the worse we made it. For those of you who don't know Groveland, we're just outside the northern entrance to Yosemite National Park. It's just a small rural community, kind of an hour away from pretty much any major civilization in the valley, and about 45 minutes away from Sonora, California. So not a whole lot of access to high-tech consultants in a rapid manner. So you call them, and if you can wake them up, if you can find them, they'll be there. Nobody that we talked to had dealt with anything like this. Usually somebody just brings their computer in to an antivirus shop, and they fix it up and you take it back. But when you've got a network of computers in a municipal environment, it's pretty scary when things don't work. So all of a sudden we get a virus detection from our wonderful antivirus at the time. And it was nice to know that we had been infected after we had pretty much figured that out. Determined that it was a ransomware, and I really appreciate Michael's focus on that earlier, because it is something that the message arrives, you make contact back with the perpetrator, the lovely attacker. And it's very simple, just a click away. In fact, some if you've noticed now, sometimes there are automatic, things open automatically when you just hover over them. That's really scary. So you really got to watch those kind of things. The ransomware comes in and it searches for the files that you use the most, the files that look most important, encrypts those files, and then there's you can't use anything. So we felt that it was really we were in a good place because all we had to do was just back up. But the problem is, if you don't have the right backup strategy, which we obviously did not, then we backed up from Sunday night's backup that ran absolutely perfectly. And when we did, we basically backed up infected files over infected files because we were using a backup strategy that basically overwrit. The data was overwritten each day, each time that it backed up. So we had no ability to back up the system with the files before the day of the attack. But anyway, then we got a really nice message from a very wonderful person who after we tried to repair the files, after we tried to restore from the backup, we were contacted by a nice person who let us know that they had a means to be able to fix our problem. And so we had a request for a big $400 in Bitcoin. Now that was 2015, before this has all evolved for years and years. So I would imagine to say that $400 is not what the number is they're asking anymore. So how did we feel? We were very helpless and confused and angry. How do you pay criminals to unlock your files, and how do you trust them? Unfortunately, we had to get back to business as quickly as possible. And so we worked to pay the Bitcoin ransom. And then we celebrated. You know, you've got our files are back and everything's working just fine. All the board documents, customer files, property records, templates, policies, emails. We thought everything was perfect. And that was, again, in 2015. So let's fast forward to 2019. I joined the district in 2018, and I was told that there were no files, no original files on a lot of our engineering documents. And part of this was because when the district went through hard times, the engineering department was pretty much decimated. They did not rehire a district engineer, so we didn't have the person to manage the engineering files. So no one really knew that those files existed on an engineering server that was rarely accessed by anyone because we were so short-staffed, we were in maintenance mode. So I found these files as we were doing a master plan update, and each one of them on the engineering server had this really funny extension that when I tried to open it, it would give me an odd message. And I just couldn't figure out what was going on. And obviously, we thought back to the attack of 2015 and the fact that those files were obviously encrypted at that time, but there was not the protocol or the staffing or the understanding of the system to even discover those until 2019. What we lost in that, the records included all of our record system drawings. For those of you that have water systems, those are the heart of your operation. Those are where you're able to know where your infrastructure is and what it consists of. All of our construction drawings, the specifications and details that you always have for how to operate things and how things are built. Really important GPS and GIS files showing locations of all of the infrastructure, property lines, fire hydrants, sewer manholes, pump stations, tank locations, boundaries, survey data, easements. All of that information was still encrypted from the 2015 attack. Looking at it now, and we're picking away at it, but the cost to recreate that information is over $1 million, absolutely. But in addition, it's just the lost time and the effort and the angst that we're going through. We couldn't even update the master plan from 2005 because we didn't have the data. So the main thing that I can tell you is that we need to plan even the smallest utility. I mean, it just doesn't matter what size you are. That hack has the same impact as it had on our district. And, developing a data security plan, just understanding where all of your data is stored and who has access to it and why it's there, and making sure that every one of your systems is protected. A file management system. So, assigning responsibility for file maintenance, what things you're purging out, where you're saving it, and then also obviously how it's backed up, how it's managed, and someone has the responsibility so that if there is an issue, that you know exactly to go check. Perhaps like the public server that was only used for remote work, So, and also having a data backup strategy, and training new staff at day one, and then continuing that training on a regular basis. It's just so important for everyone to understand how your data is protected and what to do if you see a suspicious message. I'm in the habit now of when I get an email that just sounds weird or I wasn't expecting, and I get 100 emails a day easily. I'll hover over that email address just to see if it actually is coming from this government agency that it says it's coming from, that wants me to buy them plane tickets or get them a gift card or help them out at home. That's what the message says, when in reality, it's a message being spoofed coming from someone else. So pretty scary stuff. And these are things that we implemented after the attack and after we discovered all the problems in 2019. We actually had to hire someone to come in and work for the district. And we multitask that person. They work on the SCADA system. They work on all of our IT. They are responsible for the data protection and the. We've also started to use Laserfish and some other storage venues and file organization protocols. So anyway, incremental backups of all the files stored locally, offsite, and in the cloud. We've got 3 locations where we have those backups. And it's incrementally, so it doesn't overwrite the previous data. We can back up to the hour before the hack, and pull down one of those backup locations. So that's really important. We make sure that we've got our local files, our desktops, our Office 365, Dropbox, OneDrive. All of the various locations need to be protected, known, and documented. We've got a complex password policy. I'm kind of hitting some of the things that Michael had outlined as important, but these were things that we implemented fairly easily and quickly and practiced today. And obviously keeping the antivirus on all of the desktops, laptops, and servers, routers and file. As a message comes in, anything comes in. Hopefully, I'm still projecting because I'm hearing my internet is unstable, just like me. All files that we receive, attachments for emails and the like, are scanned by the antivirus system before they can open. We've got daily automatic scans and weekly full scans, routine or automatic scheduled updates for critical patches. So again, as we've already talked about, training employees is really important, because if the employee doesn't know that you have a certain place that you keep files. I've had really good backup strategies in the past where an employee was keeping everything on their My Documents or on their desktop, or in their downloads, and then they take their laptop home with them, and that particular folder wasn't getting backed up. And that's just because they didn't have the training to know that you had to keep it on the location in the OneDrive, so it could be backed up and it could be scanned for viruses. Anyway, policies developed through your board of directors or internal policies on how you handle things, and continuing to train your employees on it. So the hackers really won't do what they say, and even if they're paid and promised to do the right thing, they don't always do the right thing. You can't stop every random Monday morning click. It's just not going to happen. So you got to be prepared. And I'd be glad to speak with anyone about what happened and what we did, and that's pretty much about the excitement that I have for you.
Thank you, Pete. Really appreciate it. I remind our participants that Q&A will be open right after our last speaker, so feel free to put in your questions. We'll try to get them as much as possible, although our time is limited, so we apologize if we don't get to all of the questions. So far, I'm hearing prepare, Corey. So you're the last speaker here on this panel. Thank you for being here. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So I appreciate the time here today. My name is Corey Kaufman. I'm General Manager of the US West region for VC3. We are a managed service and IT security company. I'm here today to give the perspective of the organization that is responsible for managing that security and implementing these tools. We specifically have an expertise in a vertical in the municipality and special district space. We serve more than 1,100 municipalities across the nation. We like to say one of our mottos is we're intended to serve every city and every state. And if we can find a solution for Pineapple, Alabama, with a population of 128 people, we can find a solution for pretty much anybody. So our goal today, or my goal today, is to give you some tips on how to prevent, how to detect, and then how to respond to a cyber emergency. So as we go through here, we'll be talking about 10 things that you should be thinking about in order to prepare for a cyber emergency. 2 of those are, in our opinion, more critical than others. So we are going to focus on 2 key items from there. Third, we're going to look at the one thing that no one makes time for, but everybody should. And then the last piece there is how to ensure that my team is ready to respond to a cyber emergency. I'll take a quick step back. As you can see here, that circle, the onion layer approach has evolved over the last 17 or 20 years or so. In 2005, we had a couple of tools, a couple of things to protect our people and our data. As you go on to 2010 there, it seems to double. And as you go on to 2022 and 2023, there are significantly more tools, significantly more data, significantly more sophistication around systems and how we use technology. And so the needs of 2005 have certainly evolved to 2022. I like to say that in 2005, you could get away with being your general practitioner. You know, you go to see your primary physician, and your primary physician could probably diagnose most of your issues. If you look at 2022, the industry has shifted to a much more specific and sophisticated vertical for each of these different tools and pieces of IT. And so we are going to focus specifically on the basics and the top 10 there. So being prepared for a cyber emergency means that you start with the basics and you practice good cybersecurity hygiene. And hopefully, if you implement the controls, you'll be able to cover your bases when you're faced with an actual cyber emergency. So let's talk through what those are here quickly. Number 10, protecting all your endpoints with some sort of advanced endpoint security. So that means, as Michael and Peter have mentioned, that we're not leaving pieces of the environment exposed. We are accounting for every workstation, every laptop, every tablet, and every smartphone, and we're making sure that we are we're blocking malware, we're blocking those botnets and any unauthorized installs on the environment. And lastly, there you've got some sort of cloud-based artificial intelligence to combat threats that are different than antivirus. We're using tools that are learning and sophisticated and understand how to track down current threats. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit here as well. Number 9, make sure that you're protecting your perimeter by implementing a business-grade firewall. Thank you, Peter, for bringing that up in the last section as well. Implement a business-grade firewall. Make sure that you're looking at some sort of vulnerability or penetration testing on some sort of regular cadence, and you're investing in intrusion detection systems and some sort of system to unify the threat management of those systems. We'll talk more about what that means here in a second as well. Number 8, as Michael mentioned, make sure that you're continuing to do that patch management. It's something that is so foundational, but it's also one of the most common methods for delivering malware. We need to make sure that you're identifying and deploying software updates to all those devices and applications. It cannot be an optional thing at this point. It has to be included on all workstations and laptops. The other thing to be thinking about too is that it needs to be more than just your Windows devices. You have to be thinking about applications. You have to be thinking about your mobile devices as well. Number 7, very, very critical, obviously have a backup and disaster recovery response plan, and ensure that your backups are, number 1, actually being done, actively being monitored, and they are immutable. And so that immutable piece of it is a relatively new portion of that technology to where it cannot be changed. So it cannot be impacted, it can't be changed. As Peter mentioned, his backup system was writing over that last system. The immutable backup systems will keep that in perpetuity, and it cannot be changed even if a ransomware attack or something happens to penetrate that. Make sure that those are tested proactively, and make sure that your functionality is restored in a timeline that makes sense for you. And what that means basically is if you come across an emergency, we want to make sure that we are prepared and can restore in a timeline that makes sense for our organization. So number 6 on our list here is to deploy web content filtering. So this happens at multiple layers within your environment and your organization. So you have it from the firewall, you have it at the DNS and the cloud level to the endpoint. And we want to make sure that we're scanning and screening for potentially harmful web-based traffic before it makes it to your end user's PC. We're also going to block sites and do an allow and a block for specific sites to create a safe environment for your people to browse the internet. Number 5, very, very important. Email is the most successful attack vector for bad actors still. We, as the IT department, our goal is to stop malicious email before it gets to your inbox. Now, there is a very fine line there, because immediately when I block too much, I will hear it and people will be upset at me because they didn't get that really important email. But if I don't block enough, it leaves everybody exposed to clicking on that one malicious email that can start our next cyber emergency. So making sure that we have very strong email security practices and controls, and reducing the risk to your employees by exposing them to malicious emails. Number 4, cyber awareness training. So we talked about that. Michael talked about it. Peter talked about it. Our users and our people pose the biggest risk for our organization. And if they are untrained to spot a current cyber attack, your risk only grows there. So regularly train your people, test them, educate your employees, and promote a strong vigilance within your staff that they don't want to be the one that fails or ends up on the security team's radar. Now, on the other side of that, what we want to do is promote a culture of cyber awareness. And in order to promote that culture, there's a couple of things that need to happen. The first is the direction has to come from the top. So it can't come from the IT team and push those controls on the organization. It needs to come from the leadership within the agency, the municipality or organization. And then the second thing is we want to make sure that we are not criticizing for those that happen to click on a bad link or a bad email. We need to make sure that they are okay bringing that to IT and to leadership's attention. Number 3, a focus on incident response plan. So make sure you're working with your IT team on what you can do in the case of a cyber emergency. So as everybody has mentioned here, it is not a matter of if, but it is a matter of when something happens. And so evaluate what you can implement internally and things that you should be looking to contract or reach out to third parties externally that they might have more expertise. And number 2, Make sure that you are using tools that have threat intelligence. So our firewalls are becoming more advanced, our tools are becoming more advanced. There are more of them, they are more complex. The good news is that some of that cost is coming down to where it's more accessible today. So it wasn't accessible to have a 24/7 SOC 10 years ago. It was far too expensive. A SIM tool is another tool that is still expensive today, but it's coming down in cost, that helps us correlate threats from different areas of our environment. And EDR, which is endpoint detection and response, is one of those key critical tools that we have to have in place. It's going to behaviorally look at your environment and how things interact between your endpoints and your servers and your systems, and look for malicious behavior and hopefully stop that before it creates that cyber emergency. So down to number one here. Number one thing you can do to protect yourself happens to be free, and that's implement multi-factor authentication. You have to do this, as Michael mentioned before, and I think Peter mentioned it as well. It is such a simple thing, and it is free in most cases, and it will protect you from 90+% of those attacks out there. So if you don't believe me on that, Microsoft says that 99.9% of its account compromises can be blocked by multi-factor authentication. And over on the right side there, you can see of 94% of ransomware victims investigated did not use multi-factor authentication. So whether it's 94, 99, 80+% of these attacks and compromises can be solved or prevented by using multi-factor authentication. So that's pretty significant. And the two tools that I want to focus on to make sure that you guys can protect yourselves, if you're not going to do anything, we need these two tools. And we also need to start thinking about emergency prevention versus emergency detection. So I want you to keep that in your mind here as we shift our mindset from being able to prevent to being able to detect. So number one is obviously multi-factor. So even if we bring that number down to 90% or 80%, that is still the best way for you to prevent a cyber emergency. It's not realistic to think that multi-factor authentication or any of these other tools can stop all cyber emergencies. There are 80,000 people every single day that fall for some sort of scam where they give away their username, their passwords, credit cards. Somehow it results in a stolen identity or financial loss. They're very, very tricky. There's no way to stop all of that, right? So as an organization, we have to shift our mindset from we can prevent a cyber emergency to we need to be able to detect a cyber emergency and respond as quickly as we possibly can to mitigate any damage there. And here's the second tool, endpoint detection and response. So investing in tools like an EDR or an MDR product will put you in a position to respond to a cyber emergency as quickly as you possibly can. So why is it important to respond quick? Well, most of these cyber emergencies don't happen like that. Most of them, as you can see there in the middle section, the average time that an attacker has to dwell in an environment before detection is somewhere between 11 and 24 days, which means that for 2 to 3 weeks, you are in the middle of a cyber emergency and you don't even know it. Someone is in your system. They're preparing for to exploit the system somehow. They might actually be selling the access to your system on the black market, which is why it takes somewhere between 11 and 24 days to sell that. Then they sell it to the bad actor, they get in and they exploit. So the next key is understanding how to respond once it's happened. So a cyber emergency can quickly go from an emergency to a catastrophe if we don't have a plan. So here's the part that nobody has time for. Make a plan. You have to have a plan. It's critical to success or failure for a cyber emergency. So work with your IT teams to identify critical systems, data, and process. If you try and do all of it, it will seem overwhelming. So make sure that you are not putting all the same value across all of your data and the whole organization. Understand where the priority is. Make sure that your incident response plan is written down. It has to be. Ask your teams to identify who will do what and how long it'll take in that emergency scenario. Remember too that the who might not always be a person in your organization. It might be reach out to the authorities, reach out to cyber insurance, reach out to a third-party organization. So that's a lot to take in. So you might be asking, how do I ensure that my team is ready and did we think of everything here? How do we ensure that? How will my team respond? We have to practice and we have to test it. Practice makes perfect. Do a tabletop exercise with your team. Come up with a scenario and have your team run through it. Document those results so that you can update the plan as needed from there. Don't let your IT teams just talk through it. Make sure that they actually do it. Test the monitoring, test the restore capabilities, ask for the evidence so that you can verify the effectiveness and the timing. And by timing, what I mean is how long did it take to get these systems restored and get us back functional again? Review the results with your team and let them know that a failure represents an opportunity to improve and also reduce stress in the case of a live emergency. So think about that. You come in, you didn't know that your day was going to go that way, just like Peter mentioned. If you had been through it before and you know what to do, the stress of that scenario is significantly less and you'll be able to operate faster and get yourselves back up and running quickly. Just a couple of closing thoughts here with my last minute. Implement the controls. If you are able to implement all the controls on that cyber checklist, it's not going to make you bulletproof to a cyber emergency, but it will put you in a great spot to avoid a cyber catastrophe. Start by implementing MFA and EDR tools today if you can, if you don't have those in place. Shift your mindset from we can prevent an emergency to we need to be able to detect an emergency and respond quickly. Make a plan, write it down. A lot of times that's the hardest part. As IT people, we do not like to write things down. We like to fix things, but we don't like to write. Don't put everything on your IT team and make sure that your organization, and it's an agency-wide, organization-wide endeavor, test your plan. And lastly, we all have similar challenges, so ask your peers about their plans and experiences, just like we did with Peter there, so that you can make sure that your plan has covered all the bases. So thank you very much. I think I'm up against my time. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Corey. And I thank all of the speakers for being so timely in their presentations. Great educational presentation. What I learned is plan, prepare, practice, and evaluate. I can tell you that as people write questions, I'll wait for another minute or so that all questions come in. I can tell you that as a mayor and council member, which is the other hat that I wear in a California city, in a Southern California city, I wrote an article once that was published in Apolitical that talked about the importance of the plan. It all starts with the plan. So please, the policymakers who are on this webinar, it's incumbent upon you to make sure that there is a plan. Once that process starts, I think the rest will follow. At USC, we have been a dual authentication platform for years now. And we also have a mandated cybersecurity course that everyone at USC takes. Highly recommend, of course, with a particular vendor that you might have to have an online course for every single person in the organization. I know I benefit from it every year that I watch that course and complete the course, so to speak, to understand how emails can be the first source of, as discussed, danger in cybersecurity. With that, let me go to the questions. The first question, I know that a couple of people are typing answers, but to all of our presenters, first question is, do you recommend a certain cyber awareness training for employees? Michael, let's start with you.
Yeah, and I responded to the one who asked that question, but I'll go a little deeper. As you mentioned, Frank, we do every year cybersecurity training at the university, and so I would say at a minimum that should be done for every organization. And you can build your own. Your IT departments probably already have an idea of what to teach, what that training curriculum should look like. But even the vendors that you work with, they often offer training courses. But I would start, if you're starting from scratch, I would reach out to Department of Homeland Security and their Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. They offer training programs, and they specialize with working with municipalities and city governments. Every major city has usually somebody who's available. That's what they do. And I would recommend reaching out to them. Over.
Great. The next question is, what feasible products can employers offer if employees do not want to use their personal cell phones for MFAs? Pete?
In my experience, I haven't had that many employees refuse to use their personal device for the authentication. However, the majority of our employees also have district cell phones. They'll be carrying both phones with them. So there's always been an option to be able to receive that message and do the multi-factor. Anyone else on the panel have any experience with that?
Corey, any suggestions?
Yeah, so we typically start with in the organization, we don't like to make it an optional thing to not use a phone if we can do that. Otherwise, if somebody does not want to use their personal device, you can use a token. You can use other forms of authentication. You give them a physical key that they can then plug in, exactly like Michael is showing right there, that they can plug into their systems or tap in. That way, they don't have to have that application loaded on their phones.
Corey, let me stick with you as a question is directed to you. Our district is quite small and have no IT department.
Yep.
What outside sources are available for us to protect our system from cyber attack?
Sure. If I'm understanding the question correctly, there, it's how can I get resources or funding to help with some of these things? I think that's the question there. And so we work with organizations like the League of Cities in California and CSDA to be able to provide some of those options, either in ways of grants or looking for other things, other ways to provide some of that funding. If you can connect with me afterwards, I can help you through some of those different things depending on where you're at in the state.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
I would like to add that, again, reach out to Department of Homeland Security. They do offer grant programs to help with cybersecurity infrastructure protection. So, that is out there. Over.
Michael, would they also have a sample cyber attack incident response plan, or where can people look for that?
That's a good question. I would suspect they do, but I don't know that for sure because I've never really dug into that detail. But there are examples of such plans. Just Google it. You can find plans. But again, almost all the vendors out there that specialize, like Corey's operation, they're going to have examples of such plans. But again, if you're just starting, Google and just get familiar with what's already out there. And then when you actually reach a vendor or Department of Homeland Security or the FBI or somebody, you're already a bit knowledgeable about what a plan looks like. And that can help get you, at least launch you in the right direction.
Pete, is your plan a public document?
No, it's not. It's more of an internal. It's kind of we treat it as a security document. It's an internal staff document, primarily because it does identify certain vulnerabilities.
Sure.
And so
sure.
we keep that close to the chest. But one thing that we found very helpful was just when we did finally bring someone on board that handles all of our IT and SCADA and everything else, is that just have him sit down and he didn't like to type either, but just record his voice, just walking through, just purged it, and then turned that over to somebody, in our administration, and they typed it out very nicely, and then it becomes something that you can work from there, because I believe that every entity is going to be. I don't think you can take a template off the shelf without some really good internal working to be able to understand. Everybody calls their system different.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that everyone's architecture is a bit different than the other. I suspect that everyone needs to kind of have a personalized, as limited as it might be, but it sounds like this is something that each organization needs to focus on and prepare their own. Finally, before we run out of time, I think I know the answer to this question, but I'll ask it anyway. How good is Office 365 at screening malicious emails before they reach employee inboxes? And how much information can we share on that? Corey?
Sure. Yeah, I'll address that one. So typically, we like to have a secondary layer on top of the base standard with Office 365. Microsoft also offers upgraded packages for their email security, advanced threat protection, and some other offerings as well, which are a few bucks per mailbox. So it all does come with a cost. But typically, we want to put an additional layer on top of that base Office 365 package.
I just would like to say one thing. It's in the chat, and I'm not sure if it broadcasts it out, but I mentioned earlier, joining InfraGard is highly recommended. Lots of cyber advice and links and opportunities that are available, including training. So, and that's run by the FBI or sponsored by the FBI.
Also has quite a library of on-demand webinars and different documents. I'm not sure to what level of detail that we have in place right now, but that I'm sure will evolve based on conversations like this, to be able to give special districts the tools that they need to protect themselves.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for your very learned and pointed remarks and very educational. We appreciate it.